does a tree grow? Why does the wind blow? When does a flower bloom? How can a rocket shoot to the stars or land up on the moon? It's science and technology, engineering, mathematics. Get smart, keep it simple. Let's learn about STEM. Hello friends! We're going to jump into simple machines today. So what is a simple machine? A simple machine magnifies our input force to give us a greater output force. This is defined as mechanical advantage. So output force divided by input force is your mechanical advantage. You want your output force to be bigger than your input force. You want your input force to be much lower than that output force to give you a really good mechanical advantage. So what is a simple machine? Inclined plane, wedge, screw, pulley, lever, and wheel and axle. These are your 6 simple machines. Some things even combine simple machines to make your work even easier. An inclined plane is also very commonly known as a ramp. Everybody knows the ramps. They love them. They help increase our mechanical advantage by decreasing the input force necessary to move heavy objects. An inclined plane can be used to help load something heavy into your car. If you've got a really big box, you're trying to pick that up directly against the acceleration of gravity, that is going to be a lot harder than sliding it up an inclined plane. That's because when you're picking it straight up, 100% of the acceleration of gravity is working against you. When you're sliding something up an inclined plane, depending on what that slope is, you're only working against a portion of the acceleration of gravity. In that case, it requires less input force, but you get a greater output force. So your mechanical advantage is greater. A lever is a beam that rotates or pivots about a fulcrum. So the most fun example of this is definitely a seesaw. You've got one person on this end, one person on this end. You've got your fulcrum in the middle, and you're seesawing. So there's very little input force here, but you're lifting this entire person's body up. A wedge, for all intents and purposes, is 2 inclined planes put together. So a wedge changes the direction of your input force. A knife is a really good example of this. You cut a stick of butter, you push your wedge this way, so your input force is going down against that butter, but the wedge action pushes that butter apart. The doorstop works in the same way. You've got a wedge coming this way against the bottom of your door hits it in this direction, but that force is translated into the floor and it holds that door still. Wheels and axles are also beneficial. Not only are they lessening the input force required to get a job done, they also help decrease the amount of friction that's working against you. Screws are inclined planes wrapped around a rod. They take a torque or a twisting force and translate that into a linear force. So you twist on a screw and it goes down or up. Screws are covered in ridges or threads, and depending on their height, they can be applied for different uses. The spacing in between each thread is called a pitch. So when you're identifying screws, you can define the diameter of the screw as well as the pitch of the threads. A screw is the most obvious example of a screw, but this same concept is applied in many other places. You want a drink of a delicious Dr. Pepper. What are you going to do? You're going to screw that bottle cap off. You're twisting that bottle cap, but it's coming up and off. Pulleys change the direction of a force, and they can decrease the input force required. The more pulleys you use in the same system, the less input force is required. That's how these huge cranes are able to lift giant beams into the air to build skyscrapers. They have a system of pulleys that work together in order to amplify your output force with only a small input force. So for y'all to have a better understanding of how these simple machines can help us every day, I have some very professional very official examples to show you. So I have this pot of dirt. It's pretty heavy. And if I wanted to lift it from my counter to this box, it's not too bad, but it's a little bit of extra effort. I could take an inclined plane, which is literally just this piece of wood I found. I could place it here, and I can very easily push it up along the inclined plane or the ramp. Obviously, this is going to be a lot more useful for much heavier objects or bigger objects that you can't really get your arms around well, but inclined planes are super helpful in moving things a little bit easier. So I'm also showing you that simple machines can be created with anything you have around the house if you've got enough imagination and tape. So I'm going to tape this C battery to my counter, and this is going to be my fulcrum. So my rigid beam is rotating about this fulcrum. I'm going to put my D battery here, which is a little bit bigger, and I can put my effort here and push up and lift this D battery. You can also increase this arm here. It makes your moment force larger. So your moment force is your input force multiplied by the length of your moment arm. So that's from this point to where it's rotating about. If I increase this, it requires even less effort to lift this D battery. There's also 3 orders of levers. So your first order lever is your effort, and then your fulcrum, and then your weight or your load. The second order lever is your effort, and then your load, and then your fulcrum. So you can use it like this. And your third order lever is your load, your effort, and your fulcrum. And I'm going to have to hold my finger here or it's going to shift. So then you would lift here or push here, whichever it requires, to move this load. So that's your first order, your second order, and your third order. A wedge is 2 inclined planes put together. You push on the blunt end of the wedge. So you're visualizing a triangle like this. You're going to push down on the blunt end. It pushes down and it translates that force, or it changes the direction of that force outwards. So, butter. Everybody loves a good stick of butter. We've got a stick of butter and I have my wedge. It's probably hard to see, but you know, if you look up close at a knife, it comes to a point here. So what we're going to do, we're going to apply our force downwards here, but we're going to see that the butter is going to split apart. So this is a good use of a wedge. We push down, but it spreads that butter apart. And now we have 2 halves of butter. This is a little bit of a combo. So wheel and axle, we've got a wheel here and an axle here. And we can apply an input force here and get a greater output force here. We can also use this screwdriver, which uses the principles of a wheel and axle, to twist our screw. A screw takes a torsional force or torque, which is a twisting force, and it translates into a linear output force. So you can see as I'm twisting, that screw is moving. My hand is turning, it's torquing, so it has a twisting force, but the screw is moving linearly up through this wood. Screws are really good at pulling things together, pushing things apart, holding things together. Screws are also on jar lids. You turn and that pulls up and off. Screws are also in things like crescent wrenches. This is called a worm screw. As you twist this screw, you've got your fixed jaw here and your adjustable jaw here. You can change the width, so you can use this for different size bolts, different size nuts to screw a bolt or a nut down. This is also a good use of a lever. Imagine you've got a nut or a bolt here you're trying to tighten, you're going to put your effort here. You've got your fulcrum here where it's going to rotate about, and you can twist here. So this is another real life example of a lever. Your wheel and axle, in addition, so we had our wheel and axle example here of the screwdriver. It also decreases friction, or the effect of friction. So you've got a car, it rolls beautifully. This is my husband's cherished Formula One little box car he made. It's super broken. So you see how that though is still able to roll really nicely, but if we pop this other wheel off and now it's only got two, it's obviously not scooting nearly as well. So that's going to do much more poorly than if it had its front set of wheels still intact, because now you've got this point here and there's a lot more friction here against the counter. Another simple machine is a pulley. This is a paint roller, but today it will be our pulley. I've got some string. We are going to tie this monster truck up to our string by its tire, I guess, because that will be easier. Again, this is just re-emphasizing that simple machines can be crafted out of so many things. They are in fact so simple. So if I'm wanting to lift this truck up, I've attached it to the string and I can pull down on this string and lift it up. Like I said, if this was a lot heavier and we needed help lifting, we could add more pulleys. We could have a pulley here and the string could loop around there and back down around another pulley, and that's going to decrease the force needed. It's going to decrease the input force needed. It's going to yield a greater output force. So pulleys can be used to change the direction as well as increasing the magnitude of your input force. A pulley utilizes a wheel and axle as well. So you've got your wheel here that rotates around your axle. So for all intents and purposes, a pulley is a wheel and axle just used in a different manner. These are just a few examples of simple machines, how accessible they are, how you can create them out of anything, and how they help you with everyday tasks. I'm so glad we got to explore simple machines together. The next time you're struggling to get something done, see if there's a way you can utilize a simple machine. You could fashion your own lever. Maybe you could even create a pulley system, or just use an inclined plane the next time you're trying to load something heavy into the back of your car. Simple machines are amazing. They are simple, so they're accessible to everyone, and they'll make your life so much easier. Thanks so much for watching. Here are some more videos you might like, and as always, like and subscribe.